Hi, I'm Vernon Gaunt. A couple years ago, I was on Ancestry.com filling out my family tree and looking for some basic information about my third great aunt, Mary Sawyers. I stumbled across a hint posted by another member. Mary and Sam Swan were passengers on the SS Central America when it sank September 11, 1857. Sam, along with 436 others, did not survive. Mary was one of the few that was saved after 8 days in a lifeboat. I was stunned. I had never heard one word about this shipwreck. I figured it was a newsworthy event, and fortunately, my Ancestry subscription entitled me to access to the historical newspapers. And fortunately, Mary, over the course of the years, had given several interviews to the papers, and her story had been preserved. This is what I found out. In 1839, she was born in Missouri, and in 1854, at the age of 15, her family, drawn by the lust for gold in California, made their way to California by wagon train. Along the way in the Nebraska Territory, their train was attacked by Indians. Mary's oldest sister, Melcina, was shot and severely wounded, but survived. They finally ended up at the Rough and Ready camp in Northern California. There, Mary, now 16, met and married Sam Swan. A month later, they had their first child, Lizzie. Sam had some luck with his gold mining, and he decided to move his family back to Pennsylvania, his home. And that's why they were on the SS Central America. Off the coast of Cuba, the steamship was struck by a massive hurricane and disabled. After 4 days of nonstop bailing, the captain finally ordered the 60 women and children off of the ship, who were rescued by another ship that had been laying off nearby. Hours later, the ship sank and claimed the lives of Sam, the captain, and 436 other men. But before Mary left the ship, Sam had given her his money belt, which contained $10,000 of gold coin, a lot of money in those days. And the captain gave Mary his gold watch and asked her to try and get the watch to his wife and daughter in Albany, New York. 8 days later, the rescued limped into New York City, and Mary was able to get the watch to Captain Herndon's wife and daughter Ellen, who at the time was engaged to a young lawyer named Chester Arthur. From that day on, Mary, Ellen, and Chester were lifelong friends and correspondents. And it turns out that several years later, Chester Arthur became the 21st President of the United States. After Mary landed in New York, she and Lizzie moved to Pennsylvania and moved in with relatives of Sam. In 1860, the Civil War broke out, and Mary joined the Union Army as a field nurse, treating injured soldiers on the battlefield. She remarried George Cook, and they had 7 children. In 1875, Mary and Sam's child, Lizzie, was accidentally killed in a horseback riding accident. She was 19 and engaged to be married. A year later, Mary and her family moved back to California and to Willits in Mendocino County, where she rejoined her kin, who she had not seen since she left back in 1857. In 1901, the town of Willits was struck by a wildfire that destroyed much of the town. Mary's husband, George, tried to put out the fire at their house and was severely burned. He died 4 days later. Then in 1906, the town was struck again, this time by the earthquake that had leveled most of San Francisco. Although much of the town suffered damage, this time Mary's house was spared. From then on, Mary lived a relatively quiet life, surrounded by her children and her many grandchildren. And in 1924, she passed at the age of 85. To say that Mary Sawyers Cook's life was remarkable is an understatement. And I am so grateful to Ancestry.com for uncovering her story. Thank you.